Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today's tutorial features more wave stitch fun in the form of a comfy crew neck shrug. This adds a splash of fun to any outfit, not to mention keeping it toasty. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, the toastiest modern crochet tutorials and patterns are here with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 415 grams of yarn. That's 990 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us which chill hobby you'd rather do, stargaze or birdwatch. It is birdwatching for me. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and half double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this shrug started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making a chain that is in multiples of 15 that reaches from mid underarm across our chest to mid underarm. Now I need roughly 18 inches or 45 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 60. Now just as a really quick tip, since this needs to be worked in multiples of 15, which is roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters depending on your tension, the nearest 15 stitch may be a little too tight or too loose, but you don't want to add or take away 15 stitches due to the sizing. You're always welcome to switch to the nearest hook size to help with your measurements. So for example, move up a hook size if it's a little too small, or move down a hook size if it's a little too big. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our wave stitch. So we're going to start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now the chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. We're going to start with half of our decreased portion first. So we're going to yarn over and inserting our hook into that third chain from our hook or into that chain that we blocked off. We're all going to insert starting with 1 half double. So insert, yarn over, pull through for a total of 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 3. Then we're going to do a decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over. Into your next chain, we're going to insert, pull through, and also into that following chain, pull through. We should end up with 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, then 1 half double crochet into the following chain. So yarn over, into that next chain, we're going to pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. That is the first half of our decreased portion. Now we're going to do a full increase portion. And that's going to start with an increase of 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that following chain we're going to insert with 1 half double, into that same chain with a second half double. Now that we have that first increase, into that next 1 half double crochet. We're going to continue with an increase of 2 half doubles and a half double till we're worked into a total of 6 stitches, and that is including our 2 previous stitches. So into that next, which is our third stitch for this increased portion, an increase of 2 half doubles. Into that next, which is our fourth, with just 1 half double. Then again, into that next stitch, which is our 5th stitch we're worked into for our increased portion with an increase of 2 half doubles. Then we need to work into a total of 6 stitches. So into that next with simply just 1 half double crochet, and that is 1 full increased portion. Now we're going to do a full decrease portion. So now we're going to start with a decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over, into that following chain, pull through, chain right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, then into the next with 1 half double crochet. Now we're going to continue to repeat our decrease of 2 half doubles, one half double until we have made a total of 6 stitches, not worked into a total of 6. So here's 1, here's 2. Let's make our third stitch, which is another decrease. Insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4 for our third stitch. Our fourth stitch is going to be 1 half double crochet. Our fifth stitch is going to be our decrease, so insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4. Then our sixth stitch is simply going to be 1 half double crochet. So far for our row 1, we should all have half of a decrease portion, a full increase, and a full decrease, giving us a total of 18 stitches made. From here, we're going to continue to do our 15 previous stitches to reach the end of the row. We're only doing the last 15 because remember the first 3 stitches we did was for 1/2 of our decrease. So we're going to do a full increase and a full decrease together once more. Getting started on our increase portion, we're going to start with an increase of 2 half doubles. So there's 1, there's 2, then into that following chain with just 1. We're going to continue with our increase and half double until we're worked into a total of 6. So we just worked into 1, 2. Let's work into our third with an increase, into our fourth with just 1 half double, into our fifth with an increase, and into our sixth with just 1 half double crochet. Now that is one full increase portion, let's do a full decrease. We're going to start with a decrease of 2 half doubles, so into that next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4 for 1 stitch, then 1 half double crochet, and we have made a total of 2 stitches for this decrease portion. We want to make a total of 6. So into that next stitch with a decrease, making our third stitch. Next stitch is a half double, making our fourth. Next stitch is a decrease, making our fifth stitch. And next is 1 half double, making our 6th stitch. From here, continue to do our 15 previous stitches, making our way all the way down. At the end of the row, it will end on half of a decrease portion, just like how we started with half of a decrease portion. Then I will meet you back, and we should have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. We are back. My first row is complete. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of this row, now all within the back loops. So let's just do the first 18 stitches together. At the end of the row, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now we're going to start with half of our decrease portion. That's going to start with 1 back loop half double crochet. So yarn over into that first with a back loop half, then a decrease of 2 back loop halves within the back loops, then 1 back loop half. Now we're going to do our increase portion, starting with an increase of 2 back loop halves. So there's 1, into that same with a second, into that next with just 1. We're going to continue to do our increase and half double until we're worked into a total of 6 stitches. So we just worked into our first 2. Let's do our third, which is an increase. Fourth is a regular back loop half, into that 5th stitch with an increase of 2 back loop halves, then into that 6th with just 1 back loop half. Then we're going to do our decrease portion. That's going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop halves. So into that next back loop, pull through, next, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, then 1 back loop half, into that following. We're going to continue to do our decrease of 2 back loop halves and half double until we make a total of 6 stitches. We just made our first 2. Now let's do our next, which is a decrease of 2 back loop halves. That gives us our 3rd stitch. Into that next with just 1 half double. That gives us our 4th. Into that next, we're going to do a decrease, which gives us our 5th. And into the next with just 1 half, which gives us our 6th stitch. Now from here, continue to repeat our 15 previous stitches, making our way all the way down. We are back and we have just completed our first 2 rows. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our previous row until we reach 1 inch beneath the base of our neck. So placing our first row, which is where our tail end is, roughly 2 inches beneath our underarm, and just continue that till we have that height. I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row. Then we can get started on the shoulder. So we are back. We have just completed the height of our shrug. Now I have a total of 10 rows. This height is just about 5 inches or 13 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do the shoulders. First things first, we're going to want to put this up to ourselves and insert our stitch marker into any stitch that is in multiples of 15 that's nearest to the edges of the base of our neck. Now I inserted my stitch marker into the 15th stitch from the outer edge on both sides. Now if this neckline looks really wide, it is, but don't worry, we are going to add a collar into it as well, so it's not going to look super wide once when the whole piece is completed. Now what we're going to do from here is pretty much the same exact wave stitches that we've been doing until we reach our stitch marker, and that's going to be the shoulder portion. So just to get this first one started, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Do our same exact wave stitch that we've been doing this entire time until we reach our stitch marker stitch. So we've just completed our first shoulder row. We've made our way all the way down and we have worked into our stitch marker stitch. We should have the same amount of stitches as we inserted our stitch marker into, and it should be in multiples of 15. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat this row until we now have a portion that can reach the top of our shoulder. So we're all going to put this up to ourselves, placing it roughly where it would sit once when it's completed. So this bottom corner stitch roughly at 2 inches underneath our underarm. Then this last row that we have right here, roughly at 1 inch beneath the base of our neck. Once we have this height completed, I will meet you guys back so we can do the second shoulder portion together. So we are back. The shoulder portion is nearly finished. I did a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 shoulder rows. Now we're going to do one more row just to even out the top. Now, what we're going to do from here is we're going to start with a chain 2 and flip. And we are all going to start with 3 back loop half double crochets. So yarn over into that first stitch's back loop with 1 back loop half, a second back loop half, and a third. Then after our 3 back loop halves, because we just worked on top of half of our decreased portion, we're going to do 9 back loop singles. We're doing 9 back loop singles because we have a total of 9 stitches made for the increased portion. So just into that next stitch with 1 back loop single, next stitch with our second back loop single, and continue till we have a total of 9. Now my 9 single crochets are completed. Now since I just had a total of 15 stitches for my shoulder, I just have 3 more stitches to do, which working on top of the decreased portion, we are always going to do 6 back loop halves. But since I have just half my decreased portion, I'm going to be doing 3. But if your shoulder portion is wider, all we're going to do is 6 back loop half double crochets that will be on top of the decreased portion, then 9 back loop singles on top of the increased portion till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut. So my first shoulder portion is complete, including that last evening out row that we just did. I have a total of 15 rows. Now this total height is just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Now we're going to repeat everything we did here on the other side. So start by inserting your hook into your stitch marker stitch's back loop. Then working our way out towards the outer edge, we're going to repeat everything. Once we have the second shoulder portion completed, I will meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed both of our shoulder portions. Now to complete the entirety of our front panel, we are going to do a little row along the bottom just to get a slight curve along the bottom edges. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our front panel. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and start with a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we just want the height. So we're all going to start with 3 half doubles. So yarn over into that same first stitch that our chain 2 is in, we're going to insert with 1 half double, into that next stitch, another half double, then into that third stitch, another half double. This is going to ensure that the outer corners is a little bit longer than the inside. Then what we're going to do from here after we have our 3 half double crochets, which we would typically be going in with 3 single crochets, and we're going to continue on with our half double crochets until we have a total of 9 half doubles. So that's not including these first 3 half doubles right here. So I'm going to insert with my first half double for this section, then my second, then continue till we have a total of 9. So we are back. We have just completed our 9 half double crochets. That is not including our first 3 half doubles that we did. We now have a total of 12 stitches. Now from here, we're all going to do 6 single crochets. Now from here, we're going to continue to do our 9 half double, 6 single crochets till we have 3 stitches left. Then when we have 3 stitches left at the end of the row, we're going to close off the row with 1 half double crochet into each of those last 3 stitches, just like how we started this row off. Then once we have that completed, do a chain up 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. We are back and our bottom row is completed. Now what we're going to do from here is our back panel. So what we're going to do for the back panel is pretty much the same thing that we did for the front panel, but without the neckline. So what we're going to do is make the same amount of chains that we did for the front panel. Then we're going to do our same wave stitch for the same amount of total rows that we have for the front panel, minus 2 of those rows. Now we're going to subtract those 2 rows for the 2 evening out rows that we have along the top and along the bottom. So I have a total of 16 rows, that is including my bottom and my top evening out row. So I'm going to do a total of 14 back panel rows, then I will meet you guys back so that we can do the top evening out row together. So once when I have the height of my back panel done, we are going to do our top evening out row, which is going to be done pretty much the same way as the front panel's evening out row that was along the top. So what we're going to do, just to talk you guys through it, is 3 back loop halves, then 9 back loop singles, 6 back loop halves, and then repeat 9 back loop singles, 6 back loop halves to reach that end of the row. Then I'll meet you back right after we do a chain up 1 and cut. So we've just made our way all the way across with our top evening out row. Now we're going to do our bottom. Now the bottom's going to be pretty simple. All we're going to do is insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch and simply put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way across. No fancy increases or decreases. Once we made our way all the way across, do not do a chain up 1 and cut, because then we can single crochet along the edges. So we have just completed our half double crochet row along the bottom of our back panel. Now we're just going to single crochet across the edge. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 1. Now all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way up. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert, starting with just 1 single crochet. This is my following side row. I'm going to insert into that top loop with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and then there's 2. Let's do this again. This is my following side row. Find that top loop and insert with 1. Following side row, find that top loop and insert with 2, and just continue doing this, making our way all the way down. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed single crocheting along the edges of our back panel. We're now going to do the same thing for the front panel, which we should end up with the same amount of stitches. Then once we have that completed, I will meet you guys back so we can seam up the shoulders together. So we are back. We have just single crocheted along the edges of our front panel. Now we're ready to seam up the shoulders. So let's place the front panel on top of the back panel. We've just placed our front panel on top of our back panel. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. From here, we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure, then just a single crochet seam along the top. So finding that first stitch into the front, first stitch into the back, and single crochet. We're going to do that again. Into that next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, single, and continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our shoulders. Now we're ready to get started on our collar. So getting started on the collar, we're going to start with a single crochet row. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch that I have that's nearest to my shoulder seam. Now working into the top of the back panel, we're just going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then working our way into any one of our side rows, we are going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, same exact way that we did for the side of the front and back panels. Once we reach our first stitch, working our way across the top of the front panel, I will meet everyone back so that we can do that together. Now working our way across our front panel, what we're going to do is start with 3 back loop halves, and it will be the same whether we start on the right or the left side. So right after working into that last side row into the shoulder, we're just going to half double into that first available stitch with 1 half double crochet. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Then from here, just like how we did for the evening out row for the top of the shoulder, 9 back loop singles. Then once we have our 9 back loop singles, we're going to do 6 back loop halves. Now that we have our 6 back loop halves, we are going to continue with 9 back loop singles, 6 back loop halves, making our way all the way down. We should all end with 3 back loop half double crochets, then just complete the rest of the single crochet row for the collar. Now, as a really quick tip, this row will be as wide as this portion can stretch once when it's completed. So when it is, try our piece on, making sure that everything still fits. If it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way all the way around and we have slip stitched into our chain space. Now from here, we're going to work on the width of our collar. So from where we're at, we're all going to make a chain the length that we like for the collar to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 6. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do a slip stitch row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Now we want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. So into that following chain, yarn over, pull through everything. Again, into that following chain, insert, yarn over, gently pull through. Continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. We've just completed our first row, now we're going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch into the base and insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That slip stitch into the base still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And from here, we'll be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert in through that back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. Again, into that next available stitch's back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through everything, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, simply chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We are back and we have our first 3 rows completed. Now just to connect it into the base the same way that we did our row 1, finding that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Does not count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work and repeat. We're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. Now doing the seam for this, it is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. We're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, and we're going to insert only in through that front loop. Then find that next stitch into the back panel and insert only in through that back loop. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of these loops. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook, and we're just going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we are back and we have just completed seaming up our collar. Now we're going to work on our sleeves. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam for the shoulder is now along the outside. Then we're all going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch that is in multiples of 3 for the width that we like for the sleeve to be. Now I'd like for my sleeve to be just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. So I've inserted my stitch marker into the 24th stitch from the top. Now we're going to seam up the sides, and this is going to be a tiny seam for me, so we're going to start by inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now we're going to do a single crochet seam. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, single crochet, once more, next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, and single crochet everything together. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our sides. Now we're going to get started on the length of our sleeve. So first things first, we're going to make sure the work is flipped right side out now. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. And we're all going to start by making a chain that is in multiples of 15, the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. Now I'd like for mine to be 19 inches or 48 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 75. Now once we have our chain, we're all going to do our same exact wave stitch that we did for the body. So we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Doesn't count as a stitch. Then into that first chain, we're going to start with half of our decrease portion. So starting with 1 half double crochet, then into the next 2 stitches, a decrease of 2 half doubles, then 1 half double crochet. Then after this, a full increase portion, a full decrease portion, and make your way all the way down our chain. So we are back. We've made our way all the way down with our first row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Now the slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch, that's just a connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch, into the base, flip our work. We're going to do the following wave stitch row, so just basically repeating what we just did within the back loops. Then at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, make our way back with our same wave stitch. We're not doing any additional increases or decreases. Then I'll meet everyone back right after we completed our row 3. We are back. We have just completed our first 3 rows. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did for our row 1. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2, into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Then just like our previous row, to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and repeat. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our sleeve. Now from here, we are going to seam it together, but as you guys can see, I have already seamed mine together. It is going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out so that the seam is along the inside when we flip it. And we're going to do a single crochet seam, making our way all the way down. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back so we can get started on the cuff. So we are back. We have completed seaming everything together, and now we're going to single crochet along the bottom to get started on the cuff. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, so our seam is now along the inside again, we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows along the edge of our sleeve and put 1 single crochet into every side row. So we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and just put 1 single crochet into every side row. This is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1. Into that following side row, I'm going to insert with 1 as well. Continue doing this, making our way all the way around, then slip stitch into that chain space, and I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've just completed single crocheting along the bottom of our sleeve. Now we're going to do our cuff. Now the cuff is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the collar. So just to talk you guys through that, right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 15. Then just like for our collar, we're going to do back loop slip stitch rows with no increases, no decreases. Go ahead and do that, making your way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it up together. So we have just made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch cuff. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together, and this seam is going to be done exactly the same way as our collar. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to do our same exact outside loop slip stitch seam till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. Both of our sleeves and cuffs are completed, and we are all done. Now the last thing we have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.